Hey guys, someone sent a message a week or so ago talking about having some problems with an estranged family. So sorry, first of all, to that person, I'm sorry it's taken so long to get to this, but really difficult topic. I think probably the first thing we should say and look at is the fact that it's not unusual. I think a lot of Western countries now have hugely ridiculous statistics on this, like more than 50% of marriages fail, or more than 50% of families, you know, have parents, only one parent in the house, and you know, whatever country you happen to be living in, you can check the statistics in your own country, but they're terrible. So the point of mentioning that is just that it's not unusual. So a person who finds himself in a circumstance where they don't have both parents at home, or where, you know, whatever other situation they have where the family's estranged from each other, you're not alone, and it's not unusual. It's probably more common than the opposite. You know, there's probably very few people these days who have a family where everybody's together and happy, and you know, there's nobody's having problems with anybody. It's a pretty rare thing, I'd imagine now. So that's the first thing, is you're not odd, and your family isn't strange. They're you know, it's quite common. But it's a really difficult thing, and I think, you know, different people have different circumstances where, okay, maybe you've got, you know, you're a younger person who's living at home, and you know, one of your parents isn't there, you know, your father's left or whatever, or you know, maybe a brother or a sister has left. That happens too. You know, brothers or sisters just, you know, can't handle being at home anymore and just disappear. Sometimes brothers and sisters have falling outs between themselves where they suddenly find that they don't get on anymore and fight, or can't handle each other anymore. It's all sorts of, you know, estranged family can mean all sorts of things to all sorts of different people. So it's probably more common now, because the lifestyles that we lead and the lives that we lead now, and the freedoms that we've got and everything else. You know, I think in the old days, families probably stayed together out of necessity. You know, when people were living sort of subsistence lifestyles where they were, you know, growing their own food and, you know, killing their own chickens and stuff. Everybody sort of had to stay together to survive, really. You know, nobody could really leave because they couldn't be independent. You know, they needed each other to survive, so families tended to stay together. Whereas the lifestyles that we've got now, pretty well any of us can leave our family and just go off and get a job somewhere and do our own thing, you know. So it's tricky, and it happens for a whole heap of reasons. I think one reason is that in families, people change, you know. People change, people's personalities change as they go through their lives, you know. I don't think anybody starts off their life with the same personality that they end up with at the end, you know. I think as times change, people change, and, you know, different experiences that they have change their personalities and so on. And so I think what can happen with family members is you can find yourself at first maybe being close, and then not being close, and then maybe later on you're close again. I think that's not uncommon. You know, people that I didn't get on at all with my father when I was younger, but I get on with him now. You know, or I didn't get on at all with my sister when I was younger, but we really like each other now. That happens quite a lot, because as we change, you know, we find that we feel closer to or further away from different family members. So I think that's all normal as well, you know. I mean, that old thing about you can choose your friends, you can't choose your family, I think that's really true. You know, I think all of us have family members, you know, either close family members or more distant cousins or whatever, but if they weren't family members, you wouldn't talk to them, you know. I think we've all got different people that in our families that are like that the only reason that we really talk to them or see them is because they're family, and if they weren't family, you probably wouldn't pick them as a friend. I think that's really common, and it's even common for siblings. It's even common for brothers and sisters, you know, that if they weren't related to each other and met each other at a party somewhere, you know. And I think if you look at your brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and cousins and think of someone in particular and think, if I was at a party and met that person, would we hit it off and be good friends, and would we spend time together after that, or would we just meet and talk for 5 minutes and then move on and never talk to each other again? You know, I think quite often that's the case if they weren't related. But to try and kick around some thoughts that might be helpful to that person who sent the message and to other people who might be in a similar situation, one thing I'd suggest is keeping doors open. And sometimes it's difficult, and this goes for family members and for friends. You know, sometimes we have a falling out or just feel separated from a family member or a friend, and you know, maybe we were close before but now we just don't get on at all and all that sort of stuff. It happens and you drift away. One thing I'd suggest is try and keep the door open. So try and, if possible, you know, even if it's just, and these days we've got emails and things, you know, if you've got a sister or a brother or a father or somebody that you're not getting on with at the moment, maybe just even send an email now and again, just saying, you know, hope everything's going well there, and here's a photo of my latest dog, or here's a photo of my car, or just some contact. Just some contact. If they don't do the email thing, just do a phone call or just some contact. Just because, a few reasons, but one is that we do change over time, and that somebody that we're not getting on with right now, if we keep the door open and occasionally send an email or a card or a letter or, you know, whatever, just something now and again, just to keep in contact, because things change and people change, and somewhere down the road you might end up close again. It happens. We don't have to either. I think some people feel pressure. They have a falling out with a family member, or they just can't stand some family member, and I think some people feel a huge pressure to resolve that, and feel a huge pressure that, you know, that's not, I have to fix it. Sometimes that's the case, but sometimes we're better off without the people. And it does happen. I've seen this before. Where there's a family member that somebody's, you know, two family members that just aren't getting on at all, and it might end up being the case that it is better that you just don't see each other. And it's as sad as that sounds. It just occasionally it is the case where it's just not salvageable. You just can't fix it, and it might not be worth salvaging because the two people just don't have a relationship that's worth saving. Basically, that is sometimes the case. But I still think if it's possible, even if you think that you don't really have anything to do with the person, I think we need to. I think one problem that people have with this sort of stuff is expectations. You know, with relationships in general, you hear people say all the time, he shouldn't do that, he shouldn't say that, she shouldn't do this, she shouldn't say that. And I think that those sorts of shoulds and shouldn'ts, I think we actually addressed this in another video, but I think those sorts of expectations that people have of each other are a big problem, because quite often we have an expectation of what a good father should be, and the reality is that our father just doesn't weigh up to that, and as a result we just think he's not good enough and we're not happy with him, and you know, we judge. We have an expectation of what a sister should be, and when she doesn't behave like we think she should, we judge her and think she's a bad sister. And I think this is a big problem. I think it's a big problem in families. People have expectations of what other people should be, and when they don't weigh up to it, when they don't measure up to it, they're not happy with them, you know. And so I think sometimes we just have to just accept them for what they are and go, look, he's not the ideal father, but he is the father, so I'll send him an email now and again, or I'll give him a phone call now and again. And I think sometimes too, with these circumstances, we can set our own boundaries. So, you know, maybe you don't want to spend the weekend with him or with her or whoever it is. We can set our own boundaries. So for example, if you've got a family member that keeps contacting you and saying, I want to come and spend the weekend at your place, or, you know, something like that, and you're thinking, nah, that's impossible, that's too much. What we can do is compromise and meet them on a level that we're comfortable with. So maybe we say, no, sorry, the weekend doesn't suit, but how about we have dinner? Or how about we have lunch? How about we have lunch at that you know, that family restaurant down the road or something, and just go and meet them for lunch for an hour, and then, you know, and that might do you for a couple of months. But I think it's worth doing, because sometimes I think it all depends on what's going to be better for us. And I've seen cases where particularly the one I'm thinking of, there's a daughter who doesn't get on with the father, and she thinks by not seeing him that will solve her problem that she has with him, and then she can be happy, because if she doesn't see him, then he doesn't exist, and then it's not a problem. But the problem is she carries him around inside. There's this unresolved problem that she's got with him, that she's carrying around inside herself, and it's making her miserable. And she never sees him, she never communicates with him, but she's carrying him around inside, and she's carrying this rubbish, this dead weight of this drama with him. She's carrying it around with her. Even though she never sees him, never talks about him, it's still there, and it's making her miserable. So she'd be better off just seeing him for an hour now and again, and even if it's not a lot of fun, it just means that she'd come away from it feeling better. And I think sometimes that's the case. Sometimes not seeing a person is better for us. Sometimes it is better for us, you know. But if you're carrying around, if you're thinking, well, I'm talking about this, if you're thinking about somebody at the moment and you haven't seen them for a really long time and it's eating at you, then maybe you're better off seeing them, you know. I think it is a hard one to work out. It is a hard one to work out sometimes, whether we should ignore people or whether we should make the effort, you know. But I think if you've got someone that you haven't seen for a long time, but when you think about them it eats at you, well, maybe you should go and see them. And sometimes it's worthwhile, you know, just go and see them for an hour, and then you don't see them again for a couple of months. You know, I've got people like that in my life where I don't really want to see them, but, you know, go and put up with it for an hour or so, and then you come away feeling good because you know you've done a good thing. And I think that's a bit of a hint too. If there is someone in your life like that, if after you've seen them you come away feeling better, then that's a signal that it's a good thing to do. If after seeing them you come away feeling really bad, then it's probably not a good thing to do. I think, you know, we can listen to ourselves, listen to our feelings about these things after we've done them. There's a bit of a hint there. I think the other thing is too with parents, guys, parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles and older people. You know, they can disappear any time, and I think that's a big one too. I think, you know, sometimes making an effort with these people is worthwhile, and then if suddenly they do die, you know, if we've been in contact with them, then at least we'll know we've been making the effort, and I think that can sometimes be a good thing as well. You know, that girl I was talking about with the estranged father going on, you know, he could die, and if he dies, well, the way she is at the moment, she's going to be in that same position forever, because she's got this unresolved stuff with him that she hasn't resolved, and she feels really bad. And then the fact that she doesn't see him and he wants to see her and she avoids seeing him, that eats at her too, and that adds to it. Whereas at least if she just saw him for an hour now and again, you know, once every couple of months or something, just go and meet him for lunch now and again, talk to him for an hour, and then it would be over. I'm pretty sure in that case she'd be a happier person. So it's hard, guys, and it's emotional. You know, the one I haven't touched on yet is the parents who break up and have kids. And so we've talked about the father leaving and what that feels like to the kids, but you know, the guys that are my age, a lot of guys my age have had kids themselves and then have had to break up with their wives, and in order to get away from the woman that they can't handle anymore, get away from the wife that they don't want to be with anymore, they also have to walk away from their kids. And that's a really tough one, guys. You know, in the same way that for some people their fathers leaving is a terribly devastating thing, for the fathers, you know, people who have had kids know that there's no one you really feel more strongly about than your own kids. You know, even your own mother and father, as much as you love them and everything, there's something about having your own kids that makes you love them so much and you care about them so much. And a lot of fathers that have to walk away from their own kids, or only get to see their own kids once a week, or once a fortnight, or once a month or something, that's really tough too. So You know, it's this stuff, this family stuff and this relationship stuff is the most difficult stuff that we have to deal with in our lives, guys. You know, jobs, getting a job and losing a job and all that sort of stuff, that's difficult too, and emotional too, and you know, and there's other things, health issues, and there's other things in our lives too that are challenging. But the relationship thing, you know, family and, you know, relationship stuff is definitely the most difficult and the most emotional and really hard to deal with, you know, and everybody's the same, almost everybody. There's some people, there is some exceptions to this, there's some people that just don't care. They're sort of, their emotions and their the level that they work on emotionally is just not strong enough to care. And some of those people can just walk away from family and don't care. You know, just say, no, sick of this, don't want to do this anymore, and just walk away from their family and never go back and not feel any worse for it. Some people pretend not to feel any worse for it, but in actual fact, it messes them up inside. But some people genuinely aren't affected by it. They can just walk away and go, no, all right, next. You know, it happens. People that live in other countries, like Japan, and have walked away from their family and friends, some of the people that live in this sort of circumstance can be like that. That's how they can do it. Because, you know, to be able to leave your country and all your friends and family and go live in another country, some people that do that are a bit like that. They have no emotion about family and friends. Not everybody, you know. Some of us just miss our family and friends, you know. But some don't. Some just come here and go, oh, well, that's next, you know, and don't really have any contact with their family and friends at home, and doesn't really matter to them, you know. So, yeah, so to that person that sent the mail, I'd say, know that you're normal, that you and your family situation is a normal situation. No matter how messed up it is, it's normal. No matter how messed up it is, there'll be a whole heap of other people with the same one. And there's all sorts of bent, funny stuff that goes on in people's families and stuff. And I guarantee you, none of them are unique. Nobody has you know, some people say it, oh, nobody's as messed up as my family or whatever, but it's not true. It's not true, you know, because there's so many people on the planet that, you know, there's a lot of other families with exactly the same messed up shit that you've got, you know, without a doubt. So you're normal. There's nothing that's not normal about you. Life will go on, and it tends to go in cycles. So as with all emotional stuff in our lives, it has ups and downs. Geez, that was a quick boom gate, wasn't it? As with all stuff in our lives, it has ups and downs, and family's the same. And sometimes it feels like the downs are forever, but they do tend to work in cycles. And sometimes our relationships with our family members, you know, just plummets, and it's just terrible. But quite often it's a cycle. And I think some people who are listening to this would recognise that too, that, you know, I didn't get on at all with my mother when I was a kid, but now I do, and, you know, you have falling outs and you don't get on with them, and then you do. And I think as with all relationships, we can only really control what we do, you know. And I think anytime we find ourselves saying, she shouldn't do that, he shouldn't do that, we just have to let that go, because there's no point in that. What they should or they shouldn't do is irrelevant. What they do is all we've got to deal with, you know. So I think we can only really control what we do, and we just have to be as positive as possible, try and keep perspective on it, try not to make the situation worse. It's very easy to lose the plot when we've got bad shit going on and react to something overly emotionally and make the situation worse. I think we've got to avoid doing that. That's easy to do. That's easy to make things worse by getting too emotional and doing something stupid. So we have to stay as calm as possible, and then try and keep the door open as much as possible, I think. Just an email. Emails are great. I reckon the email thing's made life a lot easier. Just the occasional email, and not a bulk email that you send copies to everybody. That's shit. That's shit for personal relationships, I think. You know, but just a personal email. Hey Dad, hope everything's okay that end. You know, all good here. Take care. Bye. Boof. Or, you know, your sister or whoever. Just send a quick email. Let them know it's all good. Keep the door open. You've got some sister or brother you haven't spoken to for a long time, you know, do that. Just send them an email and say, hey, hope it's all good there, it's all good here. Don't ask any, if you don't want a big discussion with them, just don't ask any questions. Because if you ask a question, they're going to answer. So if you just want to just extend the hand, just Hope everything's okay there. It's all good here. You know, take care. That's all you need, just to extend the hand. You'll probably feel better for it. You know, only you will know. If you do it and it feels good, then you know that it's good to do it again, isn't it? If you do it and it doesn't feel good, well, probably don't do it again. And if you don't get an answer, don't feel bad. Because that's one thing these days, you know, it's bloody annoying, but there's a lot of people these days who don't answer emails. It doesn't mean that it didn't do some good. It doesn't mean that they didn't appreciate it or that it didn't do some good. So if they don't respond to it, don't feel bad. You can just feel good to know that you've done it. And that's quite often the case with family relationships and other relationships. Quite often when we do the right thing and we extend a hand and do the right thing, quite often the other person doesn't do the right thing back, and that can leave us feeling a bit ripped off. But no need to feel ripped off. Just know that you did the right thing, and that's a good thing. And in the long run, we can be happier people if we do that. You know, if you extend your hand and someone rejects it, if you make an effort and they don't make an effort back, well, that can hurt a bit. But overall, you'll come away from it feeling better because you know you did the right thing, and that's all we can do. And sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. But it's worth doing if we consistently. Now, it's really hard to do it, particularly if people are doing shit to us. If they're doing bad shit to us, it's sometimes really hard to do the right thing. But if we consistently try to do the right thing with people in our dealings with people and keep extending the hand and opening our hearts to people and trying to be as good as possible, in the long run we'll be ahead. It's better for us. It's better for us if we do that. Whether or not they react positively to it or not, it's better for us to have done the right thing and extended the hand like that. So I'm not sure if this has helped that person or not. I hope it has, or I hope it's done some benefit for somebody. But hopefully there'll be some stuff, some of you guys will leave comments below that'll be inspiring as well, that might help that person feel a bit better. So anyway, there it was. Let's kick this around. Why don't you guys kick this around in the comment section? I'll try and stay quiet and just read it all. Thanks guys, thanks for listening. Hope that helped somebody. More videos coming soon.